In the beginning, I think people were upset. But the time goes and you forgot about it more and more.
It was a place of pristine lakes and mountains. Northern Sweden, homeland of the original Scandinavian people, the Lapps, who have inhabited this land of wild splendor since ancient times. Lapland is remote, almost removed from the modern world's grubby grasp, but in recent years the lakes and forests have been threatened by progress. The once nomadic Lapps now drive Volvos and live in villages. Their once rich culture is hanging by a slender thread, its relationship to this legendary animal of the uplands. Oleg Olsen may be the last of a long line of reindeer men. His father oversees the large herds in this region. Oleg has been groomed to inherit this task since birth.
I have my living from the reindeer. The reindeer is the point of my life. Everything goes around. It's basic.
So the focal point of the Olsen's year is the annual fall herding, when generations of skill are enhanced by tools of modern technology. Modern technology helps these Lapps supplement their income, and modern technology has threatened to sever their last tie with the past, not in the form of these machines on the turf and tundra, but in the form of a power plant thousands of miles away. At Chernobyl. When Chernobyl's #1 reactor blew in a nuclear core explosion, it spewed radioactive cesium particles into the atmosphere. The strongest winds were blowing towards Scandinavia. Fallout reigned over much of Europe, but the earliest and most dangerous fell on Sweden, a country that, ironically, had just decided to phase out nuclear power. It was at one of Sweden's plants that Chernobyl's awful secret came to light.
We looked outside the plant and we saw that we had high levels of radioactivity on the ground outside, but we didn't hear anything from Soviet Union.
Before the day was out, the Soviets had admitted to the world's worst nuclear catastrophe. And in Sweden, what was once pristine was now poisoned. Only 14 people live in the tiny town of Krushen. Owe Ellison is one of them. His home sits on the lake that his family has fished from for generations. It may be decades before he can eat his catch again.
You can't understand the price of the feeling if you don't live here. The government can say, we pay you 1,000 Swedish kronor, or for example, but it isn't an economic problem. It is a feeling problem.
Many Swedes experienced grief and fear as Chernobyl's shadow passed over their lives.
It was so sad. This whole area, mountain area, was clean, and the water was clean. And then this came in, and you can't see it.
Smell it? Taste
No. It's just there.
Centuries of persecution have impoverished the Lapps. Their plight is similar to that of Native Americans. So the Swedish government supports the Lapps and reimburses them for contaminated reindeer. So far, Chernobyl has cost the Swedes $600 million. And by the time the next reindeer slaughter came around, authorities had rethought their safety measures. They raised the level of cesium contamination considered safe by 500%.
1 year later, we could see that not all of the food was contaminated to very high levels. So obviously there was no need for such a very strict measure, and then it could be changed.
Gunnar Benson is worried about the costs. He doesn't want to spend too much money, and that's why they put the levels higher. and we have the option of eating or not eating.
All these things are political decisions, aren't they, in the end? What you're going to do? You've had this accident, you've got this meat contaminated. Are you going to say that it's all got to be destroyed and then the government's got to come in with enormous compensations and so on? Or are you going to, well, let it ride at some level? They can't know the end results of this. They simply don't know the end results of this. But they've obviously just set the limit there. It's, you picked the figure out of the air, haven't you? I would think it was just a guess.
Dr. Alice Stewart has been studying the effects of low-level radiation exposure for 40 years, ever since man entered the nuclear age. And she maintains that science is still only guessing, while each year more people are exposed. She worries about the lapse.
It's a high dose. It's a great deal much higher than it ought to be. And any increase is going to increase the risk of cancers, and these will be body burdens that these people will carry for the rest of their lives. So it's a very big dose. I would have said that it was rather alarming.
Many Swedes, the Lapps especially, were pleased when the government raised the allowable limits for contamination.
I don't feel any worry for the future now, because we're back in business now.
Owe Oma and hundreds of pragmatic Lapps like him ignored the warnings of the authorities and continued eating contaminated meat. The effects of not heeding the warnings are beginning to show in Sweden's radiation monitoring and research program, the most extensive ever undertaken. This post-Chernobyl effort is allowing scientists to study the long-term effects of internally absorbed radiation for the first time.
If cancers are really delayed congenital defect, look what we're doing by increasing the background. We're increasing the load of defective children. And most of them are mentally defective. And therefore you could be leading to a general deterioration in the mental power of the whole human race.